What if I told you a tiny old penny sitting in your drawer could be worth more than a brand new luxury car? Before you skip this video, check your coins, because one small detail on an ordinary-looking cent could turn pocket change into a life-changing payday. Let's find out if you're holding a hidden treasure. Welcome back to the channel where ordinary-looking coins can carry extraordinary stories and unbelievable value. Today we are diving into an American coin that many people have seen, some may even still have, but very few truly understand. This is the United States of America Kennedy half-dollar from 1983. At first glance it may seem like just another old coin, but once you learn its story, rarity, and collector demand, you might start checking your drawers and coin jars immediately. Make sure you watch till the very end, because the final value reveal might surprise you. The Kennedy half-dollar holds a special place in American history. It was first introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy after his tragic assassination. From the moment it was released, the coin became a symbol of respect, remembrance, and national pride. By the time 1983 arrived, the Kennedy half-dollar was no longer made with silver for regular circulation, which makes coins from this period especially interesting to collectors. The 1983 Kennedy half-dollar was produced during a time when half-dollars were rarely used in daily transactions. Many people stopped spending them, choosing instead to save them as keepsakes. However, most of these coins still ended up with marks, scratches, or signs of handling. Finding a truly high-quality example today is much harder than most people realize, especially one that looks almost exactly as it did when it left the mint. Let's take a closer look at the design. On the front of the coin, you'll see the strong and dignified portrait of President John F. Kennedy. His calm expression represents leadership, hope, and a vision for the future. The details in his hair, facial features, and profile are important indicators of the coin's condition. Sharp details and clean surfaces can significantly increase its desirability among collectors. Turn the coin over, and you'll find the presidential seal of the United States. The eagle, shield, stars, and olive branch symbolize strength, unity, and peace. This powerful design reflects America's identity and values, making the coin not just currency, but a historical artifact. Collectors deeply appreciate coins that combine meaningful history with bold national symbolism. What truly makes the 1983 Kennedy half-dollar special is its rarity in top condition and the existence of unique varieties and minting anomalies. Some coins from this year show striking errors such as off-center strikes, double details, or unusual surface textures. These errors occurred during the minting process and instantly make a coin far more desirable, because no two era coins are exactly the same. Additionally, uncirculated coins from 1983 were never officially released in standard mint sets, which makes pristine examples extremely difficult to find. This single fact alone dramatically increases collector demand. When a coin is rare by circumstance rather than low mintage, its value can skyrocket once collectors realize how hard it is to obtain. Over the years, interest in Kennedy half-dollars has continued to grow, especially among investors and serious numismatists. Coins that combine historical significance, limited availability, and exceptional condition often become long-term value pieces. The 1983 issue fits perfectly into this category, making it one of the most talked about modern-era Kennedy half-dollars in collector circles. Now comes the moment everyone waits for. If you own a 1983 Kennedy half-dollar that is in outstanding uncirculated condition or features a rare minting error, its value can reach an astonishing $87,000. That's right. A coin many people once ignored could be worth a small fortune today. So take a closer look at your collection, because history and value might be hiding in plain sight. Today we're taking a close look at a coin almost every American has handled at some point in their life. The United States 1-cent penny from 1974. It's small, it's common, and most people would never imagine it could be special. But as collectors know, sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins hide the most extraordinary surprises. Let's rewind to the year 1974. The United States was going through a time of political tension, economic challenges, and cultural change. It was the era of rising inflation, long gas lines, and major headlines in Washington. Through all of this, life went on. People bought groceries, paid bus fares, and dropped pennies into jars at home. The 1974 Lincoln cent quietly passed through millions of hands during this unforgettable period in American history. The design of the coin had already been a familiar sight for decades. On the front, you'll see the profile of President Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909. His portrait, created by Victor David Brenner, was the first time a real historical figure appeared on a regularly circulating U.S. coin. Around Lincoln's image are the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1974. While most people never look twice at these details, collectors study every line, curve, and letter spacing. Turn the coin over and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which appeared on the reverse of pennies from 1959 until 2008. Even though the coin is small, the memorial design is surprisingly detailed. In well-preserved examples, you can see the columns clearly and even make out the tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the monument. That level of detail is one of the first things to wear down once a coin enters circulation, which is why sharp reverses are so desirable today. Now here's something important about the 1974 penny. It was made during a time when the U.S. Mint was producing huge numbers of coins to keep up with demand. Pennies were struck in Philadelphia and Denver for general circulation, and in San Francisco for proof sets made especially for collectors. Because so many were produced, you might think they're all common. But in coin collecting, survival in top condition is what truly matters. Most 1974 pennies lived rough lives. They were tossed into pockets with keys, dropped on sidewalks, and rolled around in cash registers for years. Tiny scratches, dull surfaces, and worn details are normal. Finding one that somehow escaped circulation, keeping its original mint shine and crisp design, is much more difficult than the mintage numbers suggest. Collectors pay special attention to color when it comes to pennies from this era. Freshly struck coins have a bright red copper color. Over time, exposure to air and moisture turns that red into brown. A 1974 penny that still shows full original red luster decades later is far more desirable than one that has darkened. Color, surface quality, and sharp details together determine whether a coin is average or exceptional. Another layer of excitement comes from mint errors. During the minting process, mistakes can happen, and those mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something unique. Some 1974 pennies show doubled letters or numbers, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated. Others might be struck off-center, clipped at the edge, or show unusual metal flaws. These mint errors are like fingerprints. No two are exactly the same, and collectors love coins that stand out from the standard design. There is also historical curiosity tied to this year. During the early 1970s, rising metal prices led to experimentation with different materials for cents. While most 1974 pennies were made from the usual copper alloy used at the time, the period itself is closely watched by specialists who study composition changes and rare test pieces. That extra attention keeps interest in coins from this era alive and strong. All of this means that the value of a 1974 penny depends on far more than just its age. Condition, color, strike quality, mint mark, and the presence of any unusual error all play a role. To most people, it's just 1 cent. To a collector, it can be a tiny time capsule from a dramatic period in American history, and possibly much more. So before you overlook that old penny sitting in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten coin album, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for a mint mark. Tilt it under the light and see if that original shine is still there. The smallest details can make the biggest difference. We're talking about a piece of American pocket change that most people have seen but almost no one has truly looked at closely. The United States 1-cent penny from 1975. It's the kind of coin that might be sitting in an old jar, tucked in a drawer, or mixed in with loose change. But as collectors know, sometimes the most ordinary coins hold the most surprising potential. The year 1975 was a memorable time in the United States. The country was recovering from economic struggles earlier in the decade, inflation was still a hot topic, and everyday prices were on the minds of millions of Americans. Through all of this, the penny remained a constant part of daily life. It jingled in pockets, filled cash registers, and passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, diners, and gas stations across the country. By 1975, the Lincoln cent design had already become one of the most recognized images in American history. On the front of the coin, you see the familiar profile of President Abraham Lincoln, first introduced on the cent in 1909. His portrait, facing right, is surrounded by the word Liberty, the national motto "In God We Trust," and the date 1975. It's a design that people often overlook because it's so familiar, but collectors study every tiny detail: the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lettering, and the smoothness of the fields around the portrait. Flip the coin over and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This design had been in use since 1959 and would remain until 2008. Even though the coin is small, the memorial is full of fine detail. In high-quality examples, you can clearly see the steps, the columns, and even the tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the structure. These delicate details are the first to wear down once a coin enters circulation, which is why sharply struck, well-preserved examples are so appealing to collectors. Now here's something important about the 1975 penny. It was still made primarily of copper at this time, giving it that rich, warm tone people associate with older cents. Over the years, copper reacts with air and moisture, often turning darker brown. Coins that still show their original bright reddish color are especially desirable. Collectors even use specific terms to describe this, with full red examples usually being the most valuable when other qualities are also strong. Even though millions of 1975 pennies were produced at U.S. mint facilities like Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco for proof coins, survival in top condition is what really matters. Most of these coins were heavily used. They were scraped against other coins, dropped on hard surfaces, and stored in ways that caused scratches and discoloration. A coin that somehow escaped all that wear and still looks nearly new decades later is far from common. Collectors also watch closely for mint errors from this year. During the minting process, small mechanical or alignment issues can create unusual results. Some 1975 pennies show doubling in the letters or numbers, slight shifts in the design, or other striking irregularities. There can also be off-center strikes, clipped edges, or surface flaws caused during production. These error coins are exciting because each one is unique, and rarity plus uniqueness is a powerful combination in the collecting world. Grading plays a major role in determining value. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification, judging everything from luster and strike quality to tiny contact marks. The difference between a coin that looks pretty good and one that earns a top grade can be very small to the naked eye but very large in terms of value. That's why serious collectors look for coins that have been authenticated and graded, especially when big numbers are involved. What makes the 1975 penny so fascinating is this contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Billions of people have used pennies just like it without a second thought. Yet a tiny fraction, preserved in exceptional condition or struck with a rare and dramatic error, can rise far above face value. It's like holding a small piece of history that somehow slipped through time untouched. So the next time you see a 1975 penny, don't just assume it's worth 1 cent. Take a closer look. Check the date, look for a mint mark, and notice the color and detail. You might be holding more than just spare change, you might be holding a collector's prize. Spotlight is on a coin that has passed through millions of hands without a second thought. The United States 1-cent penny from 1991. It might seem like just another small copper coin, but when you look closer, this year holds some surprising possibilities that collectors get very excited about. Let's set the scene. The year 1991 was a time of global change and fast-moving technology. The Cold War had just ended, new innovations were shaping daily life, and economies around the world were evolving. In the middle of all that change, the humble penny kept doing its quiet job in cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks across America. Billions were made, and most were used heavily, which is exactly why high-quality survivors are so interesting today. The design of the 1991 penny was already a long-standing American classic. On the front, you see the familiar profile of President Abraham Lincoln. His portrait has been on the cent since 1909, making it one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coin history. Surrounding Lincoln are the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1991. It's a design people often overlook because they see it so often, but collectors look closely at every detail, from the sharpness of Lincoln's bow tie to the clarity of the lettering. Turn the coin over and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that was introduced in 1959. Even though the coin is small, the memorial is filled with detail. On well-preserved examples, the lines of the steps and the columns remain crisp, and under magnification you can even spot the tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside. These fine details are the first to fade once a coin enters circulation, so strong, sharp features are a big plus for collectors. By 1991, pennies were made primarily from zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition makes them lighter than older solid copper cents, but also more sensitive to damage. The copper plating can bubble, chip, or discolor over time. That's why collectors pay close attention to surface quality. A coin that still has smooth, original surfaces and bright color decades later is much harder to find than you might expect. Mint marks also play a role. In 1991, pennies were struck in Philadelphia and Denver for general circulation, with proof versions made in San Francisco. While the total numbers produced were high, most coins from that year show wear from everyday use. Finding one that was set aside early, never spent, and carefully stored makes a huge difference. Coins like that can still display full mint luster, that bright, cartwheel-like shine that moves across the surface when tilted in the light. Era coins from 1991 add another layer of excitement. Sometimes, during the minting process, small mechanical issues lead to noticeable mistakes. You might see doubled letters or numbers, slight shifts in the design, or coins struck off-center. There can also be planchet flaws where the metal itself had imperfections before striking. These errors are accidental, and that's exactly why collectors love them. Each one is unique, and rarity drives demand. Grading is what separates a nice coin from a truly valuable one. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification and assign a grade based on condition, strike quality, and eye appeal. The highest grades are reserved for coins that look almost exactly as they did the day they were made. Even tiny marks that most people would never notice can lower a grade, which shows just how rare top-condition coins really are. What makes the 1991 penny such an interesting topic is this contrast between its everyday role and its collector potential. It's a coin people have dropped in parking lots, left in couch cushions, and tossed into jars without thinking. Yet a small number, preserved in exceptional condition or struck with a rare and dramatic mint error, stand out as true collector pieces. So before you ignore that old penny from the early 90s, take a closer look. Check the date, look for a mint mark, and pay attention to the details and surface quality. You might be holding more than just 1 cent. You might be holding a coin with a story, history, and serious value. Diving into a piece of everyday American change that most people would never think twice about, the United States 1-cent penny from 1977. It may look simple, worn, and ordinary, but this tiny coin carries history, design beauty, and collector potential that might surprise you. Let's go back to 1977. The United States was in a period of cultural change, new technology, and shifting economic conditions. It was a time when cash was king and coins moved constantly through stores, vending machines, and public transportation. The penny was part of daily life, and billions of them were produced to keep up with demand. Because they were used so heavily, most 1977 pennies today show plenty of wear, and that's exactly what makes high-quality examples stand out. The design on the front of the 1977 penny is one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. It features the profile of President Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909. Sculptor Victor David Brenner created this portrait, and it has become a lasting symbol of American history and leadership. Around Lincoln's image, you'll see Liberty, the year 1977, and the motto "In God We Trust." While millions of people handle these coins without noticing the details, collectors study every feature closely, the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the smoothness of the fields, and the crispness of the lettering. Turn the coin over and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, which was used on the reverse of the penny from 1959 until 2008. Even though the design is small, it's full of fine detail. On well-preserved coins, you can clearly see the columns and steps of the memorial. With magnification, you can even make out the tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside. These delicate features quickly wear down in circulation, so strong detail on the reverse is one of the first signs of a premium coin. In 1977, pennies were still made mostly from copper, giving them that classic rich tone many collectors love. Over time, exposure to air, moisture, and handling causes copper to darken from bright red to brown. Coins that still display their original red luster decades later are especially desirable. Color is so important that collectors often categorize pennies based on how much original red surface remains. Even though huge numbers of 1977 pennies were struck at U.S. mint facilities like Philadelphia and Denver, survival in top condition is what truly matters. Most coins were tossed into circulation immediately and spent for years. Scratches, small dings, and dull surfaces are common. Finding a coin that somehow avoided heavy use and still shines with strong mint luster is much more difficult than the original mintage numbers suggest. Collectors also keep an eye out for mint errors from 1977. During the minting process, small mechanical problems can create unusual coins. Some examples may show doubling in the date or letters, while others might be struck slightly off-center. There can also be metal flaws, clipped edges, or other irregularities that make a coin unique. Error coins are exciting because each one is different, and rarity combined with visual appeal can make them highly collectible. Professional grading adds another layer to the story. Coins submitted to grading services are examined under magnification and given a condition score. The highest grades are reserved for coins that look nearly perfect, with sharp details, strong luster, and almost no marks. The difference between a coin that looks nice and one that earns a top grade can be tiny to the eye but huge in value. What makes the 1977 penny fascinating is this contrast between everyday use and collector treasure. For decades, people carried these coins without a second thought. Yet a small number, preserved in exceptional condition or struck with a dramatic mint error, rise far above ordinary pocket change. So the next time you see a 1977 penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look at the color, the shine, and the details in the design. That tiny coin could hold more than just 1 cent of value. It could hold history, rarity, and serious collector interest. In the most remarkable cases, a 1977 1-cent penny with outstanding preservation and a rare, eye-catching mint error has reached a value as high as $92,000.